Hello, hello. I'm glad you all stayed. We'd like to invite you to have a seat. I promise you the rock star is not leaving anytime soon. You'll be able to have a good conversation with Chad at Verve. But now I am very excited to bring to the stage, and let me share a quick anecdote about Adsquare. When we put this together this year, we had a lot of conversations, but the one with this gentleman I'm about to bring to the stage resonated, and he said yes first. And that means the world to us, because it kicked everything off. Sometimes you just need one stone to roll, and then you've got a boulder. So I'd like to bring to the stage someone who's very important to the Portrait Media family, and hope to see him on many stages in the future. This young man's name is Luke Mignon. He is the head of marketing for Adsquare and leading the next conversation. Luke, please come to the stage.
Too many devices. Hello. Story of our times, right? Yeah, welcome to the outcomes era. Am I right? Woo, yeah. I don't know about you, but I feel like in programmatic, in digital advertising, we go through a lot of trends, right? We've had the year of mobile, we've had a cookie apocalypse, we've had what is CTV, but for me, like a consistent thing over this whole time has been the move towards outcomes, and I think it's bigger than just a trend, right? It's actually the era in which we live. So here at Adsquare, we're talking a lot about the outcomes era. You can see on the chairs there's our timeline of the outcomes era, and I'm going to talk you through how I see the past 20 or so years of digital advertising has transformed. It's my interpretation of how things happen, so if you have a different point of view, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to be challenged on this, but this is just what we think happened. So this is a rough timeline of the outcomes era. If we start back in the 1990s, this was really where the first sort of quite progressive websites realized that they could connect what they were doing, like they were blog sites, and they were connecting themselves to commercial sites, and they were making that little connection across the web. And this was really the birth of affiliate marketing and actually the genesis of what became the outcomes era. Moving forward a little bit then, we got to the rise of performance marketing, which obviously we know is still going today, but this was sort of kicking off at the early 21st century, and this was the actual ability to optimize towards something that happened downstream. So that was really a new thing kicking off at, I've got it about 2003 in this timeline. I don't know if you were there, if that's about right. But following on about 5 years later or so, then came real-time bidding and programmatic, and that's when things really exploded. So for me, these three the stages here, you've got like affiliate, which was all about attribution, you've got performance, which is about optimization, and you've got programmatic, which was about scale. And I think they're three of the foundational sort of building blocks that would go on to become the outcomes era. About 15 years ago, you had retargeting everywhere. Retargeting is the thing, even to this day, when you tell someone you work in digital advertising, that they remember and they know and they probably hate you for, but it was very real. And then moving forward, performance marketing reached ubiquity. It had been going like 10 years, but by 2013, it was really ubiquitous, and it was driven a lot by direct-to-consumer brands, by e-commerce, and of course mobile. And then you can see there 2016, this is when this sort of idea of user acquisition being like the biggest thing for mobile apps, and cost per install or cost per user acquired was a massive KPI for people back then. Going forward to about the last 10 years or so, really, we've seen signal loss happen. So GDPR and ATT, obviously data is a massive part of being able to target and attribute and measure outcomes. So there was a bit of a wobble in the outcomes era at that point, but eventually 2021 we overcame it with clean rooms, the ability to resolve IDs, and do omni-channel marketing with data spines. And in between that, we've also seen the rise of retail media. So this was, e-commerce basically realizing they were sitting on a gold mine of data, a gold mine of inventory that could then be sort of shifted upstream. So that was the sort of coming of age of outcomes. And for me, 2025 really then was the year of outcomes. It was CTV finally became like a performance channel. We had like custom algorithms able to optimize in real time at a huge scale. We had opinion pieces about the outcomes era all over the place. And that brings us up to now, where people like us here at Adsquare are able to not just do outcomes-based advertising through online channels, we're able to attribute offline outcomes back to online campaigns. And that's really the big change that we're seeing at the moment. You know, up to 80% of transactions still happen offline in the real world. So we call this closing the online to offline gap. This ability to not just know if people went to your e-com store, but to know if they went to a real-life store. So that's my history of the outcomes era. We're going to be joined on stage now by two people who have lived through this sort of era that I've outlined, and their businesses are delivering outcomes for clients every day. So I think if they want to come on stage, I'll welcome Kelly Boyle, who's SVP of Strategic Outcomes at Basis, and Chris G, Adsquare's, I just realized I don't know how to pronounce Chris's surname, so I've just said Chris G. But Adsquare's MD for the Americas. So thanks, guys. Hi, guys. How you doing? So, is your mic working? Is that okay? Test.
Is it on?
Test,
yeah.
test.
Chris G.
Chris G. I just talked through like a timeline of the outcomes era. Did you recognize that? Was that something in your experience that is true? Is that what we've just lived through, do you think? Start with you, Kelly.
Sure. Yes, absolutely. I think it's something we hear clients and brands talk about a ton, is kind of moving beyond just those media metrics, but what's actually happening to my business.
And your job title is literally SVP of Strategic Outcomes.
It is.
What does that, can you tell us what that means?
Yeah, happy to. So the team that I oversee is both our media strategy and media effectiveness practices. And the team has changed a lot, but over about a year ago, we decided to rebrand a little bit. And as we were thinking about what's the most appropriate title for what we do, we thought about things like strategy, analytics, insights, but those are really all inputs into what we do. Really, the focus for us is on moving the needle on our clients' business and driving outcomes. So hence, strategic business outcomes becoming the team name.
Makes sense to me. Chris, what about you? Was that sort of journey we've been on the last 20 years accurate, do you think?
Yeah, I would say it does for me. My own career journey has taken me on a similar path, starting in the affiliate world, working my way in through what is now called programmatic on the DSP side and the SSP side, data clean rooms, and now in the data space. So yeah, I think the focus has become this outcomes era from where we started.
And so do you believe, Kelly, do you think we are in the outcomes era now? Is everyone in the outcomes era?
I think we're on our way there. I think, yes, everyone is talking about outcomes, and everyone realizes the importance of moving beyond just some of those metrics. I also think just our industry has evolved to allow us to do that more than it did in the past. But I don't know that we're all there yet. I don't know that we're all doing it yet, but I think we all want to be and realize the importance of it.
Is there sort of reluctance for from a client perspective, or is there the will but just not the like the capacity or the ability to do it? What's the blocker?
Yes, I think some of it's infrastructure. I think some of it is kind of connecting the dots internally. We've even heard clients that, you know, struggle to share some data back with us because of legal compliance and things like that. So I think there's a lot of energy towards getting there. It's just being able to connect the dots to provide that information to really make the connection.
Yeah. What about you, Chris? Do you think is everyone in the outcomes here?
I think we're as close as we've ever been, but I don't think we're fully there yet. I don't think every agency brand has fully committed to this outcomes era that we're in. I think we're still trying to figure out how to manage across a really fragmented space, pull all that information together and make sense of it in a way where we can optimize towards outcome-based KPIs.
Yeah. And is there then pressure coming, do you think, or more questions coming from CMOs and CFOs on this? Is it like, I get the sense that it's a bit of that relationship that CMOs need to be more accountable to their CFO, to finance, and that's coming downstream to people in the programmatic chain who are being asked to like prove the impact of things. Is that where the pressure's coming from?
For sure. You want to go first, please? I would say yeah, for sure. I don't think CFOs care about impressions. I don't think CFOs care about what a click-through rate was. I think CFOs care about business outcomes. They care about, did this return a certain amount of ad spend? Should I continue to invest in the channels that you think are working the best? And so CMOs are kind of forced into a position where they have to answer to that CFO.
Yeah, the way that I see it, I feel like the CFO has become the CMO's client in a way that, yes, they have to tell that story of what I'm doing and why does it matter to you, why should you care about it, beyond just the impressions and the reach and the actual impact that it has on the business.
I think we're probably all, like, I know as a marketer for a B2B company, B2B business in the marketing space, I'm asked to prove the impact of what I've done. So if we're sponsoring something at Possible, what's the outcome of that? Or if you're a salesperson who's here, you've probably had to fill out a sheet of how many meetings you've had booked or something. So we're all asked. Is your team asked that, Chris? I don't know.
I'm looking at the team and giving them a wink.
Why aren't you in meetings, guys? So I think we're all being asked more to justify what we're doing. I think that's really part of it, right? What about basis then? So how do you literally help clients to deliver on outcomes? What is it you do on a daily basis?
I like to think of us as kind of an extension of our clients' marketing teams, really creating a strategic partnership and helping them kind of diagnose how they can make that connection. So we start with really understanding their business. What are they working towards? What are their challenges? And then kind of backing into what can media do to help drive against those, or what specific objectives can media contribute to, because obviously it can't do everything. And then again, like going back to the CMO-CFO relationship, we try to, be the champions for our clients and giving them the data and the narrative to talk about what is the impact of their investment, making them look good, right? So they can have those fun conversations internally about how much of an impact on growth or the end business that media investment's having.
And we're here today not just talking about outcomes, but offline outcomes. So Chris, what about brands that live in the offline space, that have brick and mortar stores? So QSR restaurants, automotive, retail stores. What is it that Adsquare does? How do we do that connection between the real world and online advertising?
So Adsquare marries what people do and where we go in the physical world back to all of the data we know about who someone is in the digital world. And so in doing that, we're able to do some really cool things. We can understand better who is visiting a Starbucks restaurant and how media is impacting that outcome. We can do things like far beyond just geo-fencing, which is something that location data was used for a long time, but to do. Instead of just targeting where someone goes in the physical world, it's understanding where did they go, potentially leveraging that to activate against future programs, but also to measure across all channels and understand, like, did the ad that we served drive the outcome or the thing that we wanted them to do? Did someone go to Macy's and buy a pair of Levi's? Did someone go to McDonald's and buy a hamburger?
But it also works at an activation level, right? So you could build a segment, an audience segment.
Absolutely, absolutely. So on the activation side, obviously, you can learn a lot about people based on where they've been and where they go in their day-to-day journeys. And so I think if you're only looking at the online piece of it, you have a huge blind spot. Most of us don't live in a digital world. My kids do, right? Because they're plugged in all the time. But I still go about my life in the real world, and I travel to and from. And I think a tremendous amount of activity happens in the real world still, and by not leveraging that, it's like I said, it's a massive blind spot in how you're planning your media and how you're measuring it, and also how you're targeting those types of audiences.
What about then, we talk a lot about outcomes, but one of the sort of key outcomes that we like people want to be working towards is incrementality. So that's literally, in an offline outcome sense, visits to stores that would not have happened if it wasn't for your campaign. Is incrementality something, Kelly, that clients are asking about? Are they speaking that kind of language, or are they just happy that people have gone to their store?
It depends on the sophistication of the client, I would say. I think incrementality is generally thought of as the gold standard, and I think that it is the thing to work towards. Because if you're not driving an incremental, if you're only driving a sale or a visit that would have happened anyway, is that really worthy of the investment? But that's hard to capture, especially in real time, and it's hard to optimize against. So usually what I talk to clients about is finding those attributable metrics that we can get a more real-time view of to make optimizations, but then testing or getting a read on incrementality on more of an ad hoc basis. So whether that's through, a matched market holdout test or an MMM to kind of validate that is our marketing effort actually driving incremental visits, and then kind of going back to those attributable metrics for more real-time optimization.
What about you, Chris? Do you get asked about incrementality, or is store visit the sort of key metric that we're talking about with offline outcomes?
No, so for the last 10 years, incrementality has become more and more something that is part of the discussion. I think where we are today, being able to measure something like an offline store visit is a step forward from just measuring how many impressions did we serve, what was the reach and frequency, right? Being able to measure an online conversion is better than measuring just what was the click-through rate and let's optimize towards that. You're actually trying to measure towards a signal that at least you know someone did something. Of course, there's always the discussion that has to be had around how much of that media should be attributed towards that outcome. With incrementality in particular, I think I've yet to find any company who's doing it so well that the entire industry has, kind of adopted that way of doing it. So we're all still trying to figure that out. I think in theory, where it should be is we should see this year and in coming years, most people starting to understand, one, incremental store visits or incremental online conversions is a step in the right direction. That's making progress, I think, in an arena that we need to make progress in. But there's so many conflicts of methodologies. If you talk to the data scientist team at Procter & Gamble versus at perhaps like a company like the Trade Desk versus dunnhumby, one of my old companies I worked at, you're going to have conflicts in what they think is the right methodology and by how you should measure that type of a test. I think what folks should be trying to do is measure incremental lift over whatever conversion data they get, and if they get it right 90% of the time, I'm no data scientist, but that's statistically significant enough for me to feel comfortable, and it's a better metric to optimize towards than just, like I said, click-through rates.
Yeah. Is there then a gold standard? You mentioned standards. Is there a gold standard for outcomes? Should there be a standard that we're looking for?
I don't know if there's going to be a gold standard. I think measurement is the gold standard. We should be measuring in a more data-driven way. Incrementality is putting that on steroids, and I think that's a good thing that we should all try to aspire towards and come up with some sort of measurement methodology that makes sense towards our organizations. But I think, again, this is a step in the right direction. I think to get to that gold standard, we need to continue to make progress in that area.
Yeah, to me, the gold standard is not a singular solution. It's a measurement ecosystem or a toolkit, and it's looking at a variety of different metrics, both short-term and long-term, singular channel and cross-channel that helps paint the full picture. So maybe a bit of a non-answer to the question, but...
Well, I think
you just nailed it.
It's not an easy question.
Yeah.
I think there's variables even at transaction level. Like a transaction on its own is not a singular thing. It could be a $100 transaction or a $1 transaction. You can't give them all the same value, and that's why customer lifetime value is so valuable. And the same for acquiring customers. The CAC basically as a metric mapped against lifetime value. To me, that's what it's all driving towards. That's the sort of ultimate goal. But we'll never actually finish joining those dots, I don't think. Do you?
I'm not sure. Honestly, I think it's a journey for sure. And I think the metrics and objectives and outcomes that a company might prioritize could change over time too. But yes, I think a lot of it is about that balance of what can we drive in the short term and then what is that resulting in the longer term? Because we've probably heard elsewhere today and in the past at this conference, even just the over-reliance on some of those short-term metrics has a longer-term negative effect. So I do think, we're always trying to figure out the long-term impact of that short-term focus and kind of how it all ties together.
We talked a little bit about optimization, but I'd like to just dig into really how that works in the real, like on real campaigns. How are brands using data like a measurement feed to optimize the campaigns? What are the things they're able to adjust, and what do they actually do? Are they there every day tweaking things? Are they there in real time? How's that actually work in reality?
Go ahead.
Do you want me to start? Yeah, I think when I start to think about some of these feeds or even, store visits, there's a few different areas that we can optimize. I think, to me, the first one that comes to mind is audience, right? Chris, you touched on this a little bit, but I think from a strategy and planning perspective, we think we know who our audience is and who we want to go after, but until we really see those real-world behaviors and what they're doing, where they're, how they're voting with their wallet and where they're showing up, that's what really tells you who your customer is and what they look like. And so I think that offers a really nice opportunity to move away from some of the demographic segments and things and base audiences on actual real-world behavior.
And there's a ton of other ways that you can use, in particular what we do, offline data, to inform, for example, creative messaging or calls to action, promotions. You can optimize between which promotion worked the best. You can optimize across channels. Is Facebook performing better than YouTube, better than other CTV channels in the trade desk and things like that? And so I think there's a number of ways, and I think more than anything as marketers, it's our responsibility to kind of have a always be testing mentality, right? To embrace this idea of like we're getting more towards a data-driven world where we can roll out, whether it's incrementality or raw store visits or conversion pixels, however we're doing it, have some sort of defined KPI that we're measuring all of our media across in order to optimize that in near real time or real time if possible.
So what then would be the first step for a brand who wants to be measuring offline outcomes to sort of start on a measurement journey? Where do you begin? What do you need to get straight? Kelly.
Yeah, I think on any measurement journey, but store visits included, the first thing that you really need to align on as a company is what do we consider the true metric of success? And I think something we find with clients is sometimes there's some internal disagreement, right? The CMO, the CFO, or even our day-to-day main media contact might have what they believe to be their objective and may not align with the rest of the company. So that's something we usually try to help clients first and foremost, is to say, let's align on what that key metric of success looks like. And then that way we're all working towards the same goal.
And for me, it would be keep it super simple. There's companies I've worked with through the years, agencies, brands, they have 10 different KPIs. It's impossible to measure effectively when you have 10 different KPIs. Have 1 to 3 that everyone internally can agree to, and keep it simple on yourself to be able to say, this is something we all buy into, and we can optimize all of our programs towards it.
Also to make it actionable, right? So for me, data has to be something you can make a decision based on. So if you're just getting data for data's sake, that's not useful. But as long you have to think, what decision am I going to make if this KPI is or is not being hit in the way I want it to be as well. Okay, we've just got a couple of minutes left, literally 2 minutes. So looking ahead then, what does the perfect outcome-centric measurement optimization stack look like for a brand? If they were to build one from scratch, what would a perfect stack be?
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
I'm happy to. So for me, a perfect measurement stack or a perfect tech partner stack would look like 1, having a unified identity layer, 2, having some sort of offline conversion data that's also inclusive of online conversion data, so you always have conversion data that you can optimize towards, 3, and always optimizing engine built into this program, 4, obviously some sort of planning capabilities. I think, and an always on measurement, right? Always on measurement, not sometimes.
Yeah, I retweet everything. People still say that. I think the one important thing across all of that is also being able to have all of that in one place where you can see it holistically. So having that online and offline data in one platform where you can make decisions both on a channel level and cross-channel.
Okay, so that's the outcomes era. Where does it go from here? Because it's not complete yet, right? We're talking about this journey to push further downstream. Where do we go next in the outcomes era timeline? If I'm making my timeline again in 10 years' time, what would be the next dot on it?
I start to think about the long-term impact. So I think as we've been talking about outcomes, and especially as the way that the industry's evolved, I think we're very focused on shorter-term outcomes, which is not necessarily a bad thing. That's still important to look at. But where I think it goes from here, once we nail that, is what is that longer-term impact, and then what are the long-term outcomes, right? Those are different than, or can be different than short-term outcomes, and are just as important to brands.
And for me, I think the longer-term embracing of this looks like, so to date, we've always been looking at hindsight. Like, what is the metrics today I'm looking at in my reporting tools to measure how things went in the past? I think where we're going, or the evolution of this, is looking at what are the outcomes and how do we predict the future. And I think the everywhere present AI, we heard about AI at CES nonstop. We are hearing about AI all this week, and I'm sure even more so coming. And so, how do we embrace both of those ideas and start to build predictive engines that understand how to leverage outcomes to be able to model and inform future campaign planning? That's where I think it's going.
We got to AI in the end on our panel, so we got all this way.
I had to say something about AI, right?
That bingo card.
Guys, if people want to talk more about this with you, can they find you this week? Whereabouts? Where are you based?
I'll be hanging out at the Basis Oasis. Come join us at the lobby bar. All are welcome. Bar tab is open.
All right, let's
That is
go.
a very generous offer, thank you. I will be at Basis Oasis having a dirty martini later, and then I will be joining the rest of the Portrait Media team tonight at Live. And of course, we're having a nice happy hour with Portrait Media tomorrow night, so if you haven't signed up, go ahead and sign up. Everyone can see all my socials. You can follow me. You can ask me anything if you have any other questions.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thanks,
Cheers.
everyone.
Thanks.